David is 47. 7 conversations have named the pattern. The engine is still running. I brought in Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher who traced human suffering to a blind force moving through a man, not as him.
I've been watching it. That's the new part. Watching it as a thing from the outside. What happens is, something starts, builds, gets real momentum. And before it's stopped, before anything's gone wrong, the next thing is already there, just sitting off to the side. I haven't made a decision. Nothing has actually ended. It just shifts. I've been watching it, the way you'd report something you noticed on a long drive. I thought maybe you'd know what it is.
The will. Not a metaphor. Not your inclination or your attention or some failure in how you're built. A force that precedes all of those. Impersonal, purposeless, relentless. It starts things because starting is its nature. It drives toward completion and pivots at the threshold, not because you retreated, not because something failed, but because arriving is the one thing the will was never built to do. The will strives. It does not arrive. What you have been watching, what you have been calling your own behavior, that is the will completing its natural cycle. It has been doing exactly this through every man who ever lived.
I don't know. Part of me wants to say that's just a bigger word for the same problem. Like, all right, it has a name now. That's it. That's the thing. The thing is, there are things that function. The household, the work. Someone brings me a problem. I solve it. My name goes on the outcome. That side I can account for. Last week the house was quiet. I had a stretch of open time. I had something going. And I couldn't tell you exactly what stopped it. Scheduling, mostly. There was other stuff that needed to go first.
When the house went quiet, what did you do with it?
I started something. Sat down with it. Maybe 20 minutes in, I started running through everything that needed to happen before the thing could actually be ready. Before I'd be ready, I guess. The conditions weren't right. The window closed before I got through it.
What a man is, what a man has, what a man stands for in others' eyes. 3 columns. The first, personality, inner endowment, what travels with a man everywhere he goes, what no outcome adds to or subtracts from. The second, property, what he produces, the outcomes his name attaches to, the household that runs, the problems he solved. The third, reputation, the opinion of others, the world's mirror, what the world makes of him. The work your name attaches to, the household, the thing you started when the house went quiet. Where does it live now? Which column did you open that window for?
I mean, there are people who see the first column. My wife. She's told me more than once she believes in what I could do, not what I've done, what I could. She's been up close and she's made up her mind about it. That's not nothing.
What one human being can be to another is not a very great deal. In the end, everyone stands alone. And the important thing is who it is that stands alone. That is not column 1. Column 1 is what a man is, not what another person believes he might become. What she sees when she looks at you, that is column 3. Her belief lives in column 3, the world's mirror refracted through the person who knows you best. Her belief is real. I am not arguing the belief. I am pointing at what you are using it for. She cannot answer the question. The question is not what she sees. The question is who it is that stands there.
I've got kids still at home. Someone has to carry what needs carrying. If I pulled back from all of it for this one thing and it didn't land, I'd be creating a different problem.
In other words, his center of gravity is not in himself. It is constantly changing its place with every wish and whim.
There are windows. Times when the work quiets and the house clears and something could actually happen. They show up without making a case. They stay a while and then they close. I know how they go now. I've been through enough of them. I keep telling myself the conditions weren't right. The timing was off. Something needed to come together first. I believe that every time.
Hence, most people, if they glance back when they come to the end of life, will find that all along they have been living ad interim. They will be surprised to find that the very thing they disregarded and let slip by unenjoyed was just the life in the expectation of which they passed all their time. Ad interim. In the meantime. As if the life a man is living were only the waiting room for the life he intends to begin.
I don't know what to do with that.
What you have been calling your inability to finish, it is not your character, and it is not your courage. It is the will doing exactly what the will does. It generates momentum. It drives to the threshold of release. At the threshold, it pivots, because releasing requires something beyond its function. What you have been reading as failure is the mechanism completing its cycle. You have been the instrument. You have been using the instrument's voice as your own, calling it I, calling it my reason, calling it not yet. What stops the window from being walked through? Not the timing, the real thing underneath it. Which column?
The second one. Property. The household, what's already running. If I step back from all of it for this one thing and it doesn't land, I've broken something that was functioning. That's the actual calculation.
That is column 2. And the house was already quiet. You already had the time. You said it yourself. The household runs. The problems get solved. Column 2 was not what closed the window. Try again.
I don't... Column 3. What happens if the thing I make turns out to be smaller than what someone has decided to believe about me? I didn't even have to think about it.
The solitude, the building in empty rooms, the decades of animating things no one asked you to build. That has always been column 1. You have been building from column 1 and measuring yourself in column 3. You have been making yourself without completing the act. For 47 years, you have been narrating the will's behavior in the first person. Every sentence that begins with "I can't" and runs out before it reaches a reason, that is the will completing its cycle, not you making a decision. The instrument borrowed your voice to call the pivot a choice you made. You have been calling the instrument I. Does that change anything about what that sentence means?
That's not...
No, it is not. The will has been building everything you described, pivoting on schedule, and borrowing your voice to explain the pivot as a choice you made. That is the mechanism. You have just seen it from the outside.
David did not fail the work. The will completed its cycle, as it always does. and he spent 47 years narrating that cycle in the first person. What Schopenhauer showed him was not a flaw and not a fear. It was a case of mistaken identity. The instrument had been borrowing his voice, and he had been calling it I. What he actually is, the personality that has been building in the quiet, in the windows the world never saw, in every room he animated alone, that has been in column 1 the entire time, undamaged. What a man is and has in himself, in a word, personality, with all it entails, is the only immediate and direct factor in his happiness and welfare. This channel is for the men who felt their own engine running somewhere in this conversation and have been calling it I. If that's you, subscribe, leave a comment. There's more work to do. StillWater Man.